you talk about motivation. This is a team that wants to come in here and ruin the party. We talked about it yesterday. And, Stank was talking about being in that situation before where there's nothing to play for in terms of a postseason spot, but you want to screw it up for the other team. Misery loves company. Yep. What's that called? Schadenfreude? Is that what that's called? I think that's the term for it, right? Finding delight in the misery of others, something like that. Yeah, I'm all about that too. when it comes to this, absolutely. And so the Rams have motivation. They also, Bobby Wagner, by the way, he's got motivation. He's only had one multi-sack game this year. It was against the Seahawks. Yeah. You could argue, I would guess, I have not watched every moment of his season, but just we've looked at his numbers, seen different highlights. I would say unquestionably that might have been his best game of the season.
Yeah, I think so too. And maybe his best game going back to maybe 2018. 2019,
and now he gets to do it in front of the Seahawks fans.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be fired up. He played a very good game last time. That was not an interception, but he was all over the place, and he's playing well. I'm looking at his numbers. I mean, he's always getting tackles for loss or stuff yards, as ESPN calls it. So the other thing too is we talked about Cam Akers a little bit, and they don't really have run game and things like that. But you look at the last 5 games, I mean, since we've seen him, he's run for 408 yards in 5 games, 6 touchdowns. He got 64 yards receptions. I mean, he is a threat. So I think it lines up good for the Seahawks, though, just because they're on the repair as far as run defense goes, and then as far as running the ball on the other side, those two things that we've talked about and kind of worried about that kind of turned around at halftime of the Kansas City game, especially the offensive run game.
Now, what about the other thing they didn't face, and that's Baker Mayfield? You look at what he's done since he's played 4 games since coming over to the Rams. First game we all marveled at. He came over with, 2 practices or 2 hours of 10 hours of practice, whatever it was. Basically, he got off the plane, put on a uniform, and showed up on the field. Went 22 of 35 for 230 yards and a touchdown against the Raiders and beat the Raiders.
Yeah.
The following week, not so dazzling. 12 of 21, 111 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Next week, outstanding against the Broncos. 24 of 28, 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then last week, not so great. 11 of 19, 132 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. So he's alternated games. Every other game he's been good. So if he keeps with that pattern, he's supposed to be good in this game. So we'll see if that happens. But how much of a different, threat does he provide versus who was quarterbacking?
Walford.
Walford, that's right.
I couldn't remember it yesterday either, and Lefko told me.
Yeah.
And I beat him to the punch this time. Yeah, John Walford.
So that's a different element they've got to prepare for.
Yeah, and like you said, I don't know if we're going to get good Baker or bad Baker. I'm trying to remember the times in the past they've faced him. I know we went to Cleveland in 2019, and the Seahawks won that game out there. But I'm trying to remember if Cleveland ever came through here and we've ever seen Baker Mayfield here at Lumen Field. But, yeah, he's kind of all over the place, and I think I do think that, like, the game against, was it Vegas, where he threw the go ball for the game-winning touchdown? I mean, a go ball, I think if you're going to throw anything, that's probably, like, pretty universal. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't read their offense right away, and I don't know every detail of all their snap counts and all the, checks and everything, but I can throw a go ball. Yeah. Every quarterback can do that, and that's what he did and won the game for him. But I got to say, he's pretty gritty dude. During that drive that we saw, and it was on Thursday night, he got sacked, and then there was a penalty. Then he threw an interception, and there was a penalty. Now, he started out that way. He started out number 1 on the 2-yard line, but also those two things happened that, it didn't count, but it's got to rattle you a little bit. Yeah. And he ends up taking his team right down the field, and I think he only had maybe 1 or 2 incomplete passes on that drive. But, yeah, he's one of those guys that can beat you, but it is kind of a weird trend where it's like every other. But, the thing is, like, he had a good game against the Broncos. They lost 51-14.
Yeah.
So,
he was 24 of 28.
I know. Game. Yeah, and, didn't throw any picks. He's had 1 interception since he's got here, as you mentioned. But it's Yeah, I just don't see Baker Mayfield beating this defense, and I think after you listen to Darrell Taylor, I think you'll be kind of encouraged about the pass rush, because when the pass rush gets going, this team plays differently defensively.